Money reveals more about human nature than any psychology textbook ever written. While most people see dollars and cents, the cold strategist sees patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities for control. Today, we dissect the psychology of wealth, not to get rich quick, but to understand the invisible forces that govern human behavior. Welcome to the Cold Strategist. I'm your host, and today we're exploring how money functions as the ultimate social experiment. Think about the last time you watched someone receive unexpected money. Maybe they won a small lottery, got a bonus, or inherited something valuable. Did you notice how their entire demeanor shifted? How they suddenly started speaking differently, making different choices, revealing aspects of their personality that were previously hidden? This isn't coincidence. Money acts as a psychological catalyst, accelerating and amplifying who people really are beneath their carefully constructed social masks. The person who becomes arrogant with wealth was always arrogant. They just lacked the resources to express it fully. The person who becomes generous was always inclined toward generosity. They simply needed the means to act on it. This is why studying people's relationship with money gives you a complete psychological profile faster than years of observation in other contexts. Money is not currency, it's information. Every transaction tells a story about desperation, desire, and decision-making under pressure. The strategist doesn't chase money. They study how others react to its presence and absence. Consider this. A person's relationship with money exposes their deepest insecurities faster than any interrogation. The way someone spends reveals what they fear losing. The way they save reveals what they're afraid of facing. The way they invest reveals how they view their own future. This is your first strategic advantage. While others focus on accumulation, you focus on observation. Let me give you a concrete example. Watch how people behave differently in expensive restaurants versus casual dining. In the expensive restaurant, they study the menu longer, ask more questions, seem more conscious of their choices. Why? Because the financial stakes have activated their anxiety about appearing foolish or making the wrong decision. They're not just ordering food, they're managing their self-image under financial pressure. Now observe the same people in a casual restaurant. They're relaxed, decisive, authentic. The lower financial stakes allow their true personality to emerge. This is invaluable intelligence. When you understand that money creates a performance anxiety in most people, you can use this knowledge strategically. You can create environments where financial stakes are low to see people's authentic selves, or raise financial stakes when you need to observe how they handle pressure. More importantly, you can position yourself as the person who remains consistent regardless of financial context, which creates a powerful psychological advantage. People will unconsciously defer to the person who seems unaffected by money's psychological pressure. Most people operate from artificial scarcity. They believe there's never enough time, money, opportunities. This creates predictable behavior patterns. The strategy here is to create selective abundance for others while maintaining strategic scarcity for yourself. When you consistently have what others need, whether it's capital, connections, or expertise, you don't need to negotiate. Others negotiate with themselves, trying to stay in your orbit. Never appear desperate for any single opportunity. The moment you need something more than the other party needs you, you've lost strategic positioning. Instead, cultivate multiple options so thoroughly that walking away becomes your most powerful move. People don't respect what they can easily access. The more available you make yourself or your resources, the less valuable others perceive you to be. Here's how this plays out in real scenarios. Imagine you're in a business negotiation. The person across from you has been searching for this specific opportunity for months. They've told their family about it, made plans around it, emotionally invested in the outcome. You, meanwhile, have 3 similar opportunities in various stages of development. Who has the power in this negotiation? The person with options always has the power. But here's where most people make the critical error. They reveal their desperation. They talk about how much they need the deal, how perfect it would be, how long they've been searching. They think this shows passion and commitment. Actually, it shows weakness and destroys their negotiating position. The cold strategist does the opposite. They express mild interest, ask thoughtful questions, and subtly indicate that while this opportunity is interesting, it's one of several they're considering. This isn't deception, it's strategic positioning. You never lie about having other options, you simply develop them so thoroughly that you always have alternatives. When walking away is genuinely possible, not a bluff, your entire energy changes. You become calmer, more analytical, less emotionally invested in any single outcome. This psychological state is magnetic. People want to work with those who don't need them, because desperation repels while confidence attracts. Every financial decision carries emotional weight. People don't just spend money, they spend peace of mind, social status, and future security. Understand that you're never just selling a product or service, you're selling an emotional state. The cold strategist identifies what emotional tax people are willing to pay. Why do people buy luxury brands? It's not about quality, it's about the anxiety of being perceived as unsuccessful. They're paying an emotional tax to avoid the discomfort of appearing average. Position yourself as the solution to emotional problems, not just practical ones. When someone needs you for emotional equilibrium, price becomes secondary. Study what keeps your target audience awake at night. Then present yourself as the cure to their specific form of anxiety. This creates dependency that transcends typical market dynamics. Let's examine this more deeply. Every purchase is an attempt to move from a current emotional state to a desired emotional state. Someone buys an expensive watch not to tell time more accurately, but to move from feeling insignificant to feeling important. Someone hires a premium service not because the basic version can't accomplish the task, but because they want to move from feeling anxious about quality to feeling confident about the outcome. Someone invests in education not just to gain knowledge, but to move from feeling behind to feeling prepared. Once you understand that every financial transaction is actually an emotional transaction, you can position yourself powerfully. Instead of competing on features, you compete on emotional outcomes. Instead of listing what you do, you describe how people feel after working with you. This is why testimonials that focus on emotional transformation are infinitely more powerful than testimonials that focus on practical results. When someone says, "Working with this person gave me confidence," or "I finally felt understood," they're revealing the true value proposition. The practical results were just the vehicle for the emotional outcome. Master this understanding, and you'll never struggle to justify your prices again. People don't question the cost of emotional relief. They question the cost of solutions that only address surface problems. Money makes people predictable. Introduce financial pressure, and you can forecast behavior with startling accuracy. Map people's financial stress points. Everyone has a number where their principles become negotiable, their loyalty becomes questionable, and their decision-making becomes desperate. There are 3 pressure points to understand. Immediate need, what they need money for right now. Lifestyle maintenance, what they fear losing. And future security, what keeps them motivated long-term. Never apply financial pressure directly. Instead, create situations where people pressure themselves. Present opportunities with time limits. Offer solutions that require small initial commitments that grow over time. Once you understand someone's financial breaking point, you control the conversation without ever mentioning money directly. This predictability manifests in fascinating ways. People under financial pressure make decisions faster but with less accuracy. They focus on short-term relief over long-term consequences. They become more susceptible to social proof, more likely to follow what others are doing because independent thinking requires emotional resources they don't have available. They also become more tribal, more likely to seek safety in groups and conform to group decisions. Understanding these patterns allows you to position yourself advantageously. When you know someone is under financial pressure, you can structure your offers to feel like immediate relief while actually serving your long-term interests. You can provide the social proof they crave by demonstrating that others in similar situations have chosen to work with you. You can make the decision feel safer by removing risk and offering guarantees. But here's the advanced strategy. You can also identify when someone is pretending to have financial pressure when they don't, or pretending not to have it when they do. The person who talks constantly about money is often more secure than they want you to believe. The person who never mentions money is often more pressured than they want to admit. These tells become obvious once you know what to look for. Genuine financial pressure creates specific speech patterns, decision-making speeds, and behavioral changes that are difficult to fake consistently. True power comes not from having money, but from controlling access to it. Build systems where others depend on your financial ecosystem to maintain their lifestyle or achieve their goals. Don't give people fish or teach them to fish. Own the lake, rent the fishing equipment, and control the schedule. Think about platforms that take percentage cuts. They own the ecosystem. Subscription models, they control access. Exclusive networks, they control membership. Instead of competing for money, create the environment where money flows. Become the infrastructure others need to succeed. When people need your system to survive, they'll follow your rules without being asked. This principle extends far beyond business models. Consider how this works in personal relationships and professional environments. The person who controls the budget controls the priorities. The person who controls the schedule controls the culture. The person who controls access to opportunities controls loyalty. You don't need to be the richest person in the room to have this power. You need to be the person others depend on for access to what they want most. Sometimes this means controlling information. You become the person others need to stay informed about industry changes, market opportunities, or social dynamics. Sometimes this means controlling relationships. You become the connector, the person who can make introductions and facilitate partnerships. Sometimes this means controlling platforms. You become the gatekeeper to audiences, communities, or marketplaces. The key insight is that dependency creates more stable power than dominance. When you dominate, people look for ways to escape your control. When they depend on you, they look for ways to deepen the relationship. Dependency feels collaborative, even when it's actually controlling. People feel grateful for being included in your system, rather than resentful of being controlled by it. This is why smart leaders focus on making themselves indispensable, rather than making themselves feared. Fear creates resistance and rebellion. Indispensability creates loyalty and cooperation. Visible wealth attracts visible problems. The more people know about your financial position, the more they calculate against you. Master the art of strategic opacity. Let people guess about your resources while being certain about your capabilities. There are 3 levels of financial stealth. The public level, what you allow others to see. The strategic level, what you actually control. And the nuclear level, what you never reveal. Display competence, not wealth. Show results, not resources. Demonstrate influence, not income. When people can't measure your true capabilities, they default to overestimating them. Uncertainty works in your favor. Never lie about your financial position. Simply make it impossible to verify completely. This stealth strategy serves multiple purposes beyond just avoiding problems. When people can't accurately assess your financial situation, they can't accurately predict your moves. This gives you a significant strategic advantage in negotiations, partnerships, and competitive situations. If competitors don't know your resources, they can't calibrate their response appropriately. They might underinvest in competing with you, assuming you're smaller than you are, or they might overinvest, assuming you're larger than you are. Either way, their miscalculation works in your favor. Financial opacity also protects your relationships. When friends and family don't know exactly what you have, they're less likely to develop unrealistic expectations or resentments. The person who flaunts wealth often finds that relationships become transactional. People start viewing them as a resource rather than a person. They receive invitations not because their company is valued, but because their generosity is expected. Financial stealth allows you to maintain authentic relationships where people want your presence, not your presence. But perhaps most importantly, financial opacity forces people to judge you on merit rather than resources. When your wealth is mysterious, people must evaluate your ideas, your character, your capabilities directly. This creates more respect and more genuine influence than simple displays of wealth ever could. The person who proves their worth through demonstration rather than declaration builds a reputation that can't be bought or lost through market fluctuations. Most people trade time for money linearly. The strategist exploits time value disconnects. Identify where your time investment today creates disproportionate future value, then protect that time investment ruthlessly. Think in terms of immediate value, tasks that pay today, compound value, investments that grow over time, and strategic value, relationships and positioning that create future opportunities. Spend 80% of your energy on compound and strategic value, even when immediate needs feel pressing. 1 hour spent building a system that generates passive income is worth more than 100 hours of direct labor. Audit your time weekly. Eliminate any activity that doesn't fall into compound or strategic value categories. This time, arbitrage concept challenges everything most people believe about work and productivity. We're conditioned to think that working harder means working more hours, that earning more means billing more time, that success comes from constant activity. The cold strategist thinks differently. They understand that the highest value activities often look like nothing to outside observers. Thinking strategically, building relationships, studying markets, designing systems, these activities don't produce immediate visible results. This is precisely why most people avoid them. They feel guilty doing work that doesn't create instant gratification or immediate payment. But this is exactly where the opportunity lies. While everyone else is focused on activities that produce immediate results, you're focused on activities that produce exponential results. The compound effect means that small, consistent investments in the right areas create massive advantages over time. Consider how this applies to skill development. Most people learn skills when they need them for a specific job or project. The strategist learns skills before they need them, anticipating future opportunities. When those opportunities arise, they're positioned to capitalize immediately while others are still learning. This same principle applies to relationship building. Most people network when they need something. The strategist builds relationships when they don't need anything, so when they do need something, they have established trust and goodwill. The time arbitrage advantage compounds because it's invisible to competitors. They see your current results and try to copy your current activities. They can't see the years of strategic preparation that made those results possible. Financial stress creates predictable decision-making patterns. People under financial pressure follow emotional scripts, not logical ones. Build a mental model for predicting how different personality types respond to financial pressure. There are 4 financial personality types to recognize. The hoarder saves compulsively, fears spending, paralyzed by investment decisions. The gambler seeks high-risk, high-reward scenarios, ignores sustainable systems. The pleaser spends to maintain social status, financially driven by external validation. The controller uses money as a tool for power, focuses on influence over accumulation. Tailor your approach based on the financial personality you're dealing with. Hoarders respond to security. Gamblers respond to opportunity. Pleasers respond to social proof. Controllers respond to strategic advantage. When you can predict how someone will react to financial stimuli, you can position yourself advantageously before they even realize a decision needs to be made. These personality types reveal themselves through subtle behavioral cues that become obvious once you know what to observe. The hoarder asks detailed questions about guarantees, wants to understand every risk, delays decisions to research extensively. They use phrases like, "I need to think about it," and "what if something goes wrong?" The gambler makes quick decisions, asks about upside potential, gets excited by big numbers and dramatic possibilities. They use phrases like, "What's the biggest win you've seen?" and "I'm ready to go big." The pleaser asks who else is involved, wants to know about your other clients, cares about how the decision will look to others. They use phrases like, "What do people usually do?" and "I don't want to seem foolish." The controller asks about your process, wants to understand how decisions are made, focuses on maintaining autonomy within the relationship. They use phrases like, "I'll need to maintain control over," and "How much input will I have?" Once you identify the type, you can adapt your communication style to match their decision-making process. With hoarders, emphasize safety and guarantees. With gamblers, emphasize potential and opportunity. With pleasers, emphasize social proof and validation. With controllers, emphasize partnership and influence. This isn't manipulation, it's communication effectiveness. You're presenting information in the format that allows each person to make their best decision based on their natural psychological preferences. The biggest profits come from emotional inefficiencies in the market. Find situations where emotions are causing people to overvalue or undervalue assets, opportunities, or relationships. Examples of emotional arbitrage include buying from desperate sellers, hiring during market panic, investing when others are fearful, selling when others are greedy. Maintain emotional equilibrium while others fluctuate. Your stability becomes a competitive advantage. Never make financial decisions when you're emotionally activated. Create systems and criteria that remove emotion from your strategic choices. When everyone else is emotional, the person who remains analytical controls the entire situation. Emotional arbitrage works because emotions create temporary market distortions. When people are fearful, they sell valuable assets below their true worth. When they're greedy, they pay premium prices for mediocre opportunities. When they're desperate, they accept terms they would normally reject. When they're overconfident, they ignore risks they should carefully consider. The cold strategist develops systems for recognizing these emotional states in others while maintaining emotional discipline in themselves. This requires understanding both individual psychology and crowd psychology. Individual emotional arbitrage might involve recognizing when someone is making a decision from fear rather than logic. Maybe they're selling a business because they're tired, not because the business isn't profitable. Maybe they're leaving a relationship because they're overwhelmed, not because the relationship isn't valuable. Maybe they're avoiding an investment because they're scared, not because the investment isn't sound. Crowd emotional arbitrage involves recognizing when entire markets or industries are making collective emotional decisions. Real estate crashes often create opportunities for those with cash and courage. Stock market panics create buying opportunities for those who can remain analytical. Industry disruptions create hiring opportunities for those who can see past current chaos to future potential. The key to successful emotional arbitrage is having predetermined criteria for decisions. When emotions run high, you can't trust your judgment in the moment. You need systems created during calm periods that guide decisions during turbulent periods. This might mean having specific financial ratios that trigger buying or selling decisions. It might mean having relationship criteria that help you distinguish between temporary problems and fundamental incompatibilities. It might mean having opportunity evaluation frameworks that prevent you from being swept up in either excessive optimism or pessimism. Money is not the goal. Money is the scoreboard. The real game is understanding human psychology under pressure and positioning yourself to benefit from predictable patterns. The cold strategist doesn't chase wealth. They architect systems where wealth flows naturally toward them. They don't manipulate people. They simply understand incentives better than others understand themselves. In a world where everyone is emotionally reactive to financial pressure, the person who remains strategically calm has an insurmountable advantage. Your homework. For the next week, observe how money influences every interaction around you. Notice the patterns. Map the predictable behaviors. Start seeing the system instead of just the symptoms. That's your foundation for thinking like a cold strategist. This observation exercise will reveal layers of human behavior that remain invisible until you start looking for them. Watch how people's body language changes when prices are mentioned. Notice how conversations shift when financial topics arise. Observe how group dynamics change when someone with obviously more or less money joins the conversation. Pay attention to how people make different choices in expensive versus inexpensive environments. Document how people behave differently when they're spending their own money versus someone else's money. Track how people's risk tolerance changes based on their current financial situation. Watch how people react to others' financial success or failure. These observations will begin building your intuitive understanding of financial psychology. You'll start recognizing patterns that allow you to predict behavior and position yourself advantageously. More importantly, you'll begin seeing money as what it truly is, a tool for understanding and influencing human behavior. When you master this perspective, you'll never again struggle with financial anxiety because you'll understand that money is simply information, and information can always be learned, analyzed, and used strategically. If this strategic framework resonated with you, subscribe for more deep dive analysis into human behavior and strategic thinking. Next week, we're dissecting the psychology of negotiation, how to get what you want without anyone realizing they're giving it to you. Stay cold, stay strategic.